Today, I'm giving you the simplified version to explain the war for your soul. In plain English, your physical body is the computer hardware. Your soul is the software. Demons and ancient spirits are like bugs or malware. Invisible frequencies are like the Wi-Fi signal that connects everything. Think about your smartphone. On its own, it's just a chunk of metal, plastic, and glass. To download data, stream videos, or make calls, it has to connect to a specific wireless frequency, like a 5G cell tower. Inside every phone is a tiny antenna, engineered to an exact mathematical length. When that antenna is the right shape, it captures invisible signals moving through the air. In the same way, God designed your DNA and nervous system to be a beautiful, natural antenna. Your true frequency was designed to connect with your Creator. That connection functions like a spiritual shield. But the enemy's goal is to hijack the system. Just as malware infects a computer, the enemy seeks to disrupt the connection, corrupt the signal, and take control. To understand how he's doing this today, we have to go back to his second experiment. Roughly 4,000 years ago, the Rephaim, the post-flood giant clans, occupied tectonic fault lines like the Jordan Rift Valley. They were not there by accident. Fault lines are deep cracks in the earth. They produce constant geological activity, electrical energy, and low-frequency vibrations. They build massive quartz-rich stone monuments like Baalbek directly over these fault lines. As the earth shifted, pressure on the quartz generated piezoelectric voltage, concentrating the energy into standing waves. The fault lines acted as a biological incubator, preconditioning their bodies to become pots or Oiketerion, capable of hosting interdimensional entities and communicating with the underworld. Israel eventually marched in and systematically destroyed that ancient stone grid. But the enemy did not abandon the blueprint. He simply upgraded the hardware from stone to silicon. Because you don't live on a tectonic fault line, the enemy had to bring the fault line to you. That's why the world is now covered with an invisible network of 5G cell towers and low Earth orbit satellites. They are bombarding your home, your bedroom, and your body 24/7, 365 with an aggressive artificial frequency soup. That continuous electronic bombardment flips hidden switches in your DNA, alters your brainwaves, changes the size of your antenna and your frequency, and slowly weakens your free will from the outside in. But a modified biology still needs an operating system. That's where the black goo enters the equation. In the ancient world, sorcerers discovered a thick black tar called bitumen. While modern science views it simply as an insulator, ancient sorcery utilized that exact insulation to trap frequencies. When applied to the skin or stones, it acted as a high-resistance barrier engineered to capture, hold, and channel electromagnetic fields. Also, pharaohs' bodies were buried with it, suggesting that it played a role in burial rituals connected to the afterlife. I believe this was a portal activation ceremony designed to anchor the body to the underworld. According to a chemical characterization released by the British Museum, the black goo was highly expensive. This is why I believe its purpose was not merely aesthetic. The British Museum also houses the Makluk cuneiform tablets. These translations describe rituals in which exorcists created figurines from bitumen representing witches or demons and melted them as part of rituals intended to remove evil influences. So, definitively, bitumen was used in ancient ritual practices. Black goo or bitumen is what we now call crude oil. It is carbon based, a substance I believe became highly valuable after the flood, and the reason for its value may be linked to sorcery. When the pre-flood world was destroyed, everything, including the Nephilim, was compressed into this black substance. Ancient sorcerers operated on the foundational law of sympathetic magic. Like attracts like. So, they believed the post-flood black goo could act like a transceiver because it carried the residue of the Nephilim. In ancient incantation tablets like the Maklu, priests performed what they called an anointing of purification, but decode the mechanics, and it looks more like an anointing of alignment. One peer-reviewed study by Feldman et al. Suggests that human skin may interact with electromagnetic signals in a way that resembles a natural receiver. The tiny spiral-shaped sweat ducts in our skin were proposed to behave like microscopic helical antennas. Other researchers, however, have challenged this interpretation, arguing instead that the effect is caused by geometric interference between the skin's distinct tissue layers. Still, Feldman's hypothesis becomes highly intriguing when viewed through the lens of sorcery. If the sweat ducts can interact with electromagnetic energy in this way, then spreading a dense carbon-rich material like natural bitumen over the skin could, in theory, completely alter that interaction, helping atmospheric signals link more readily with the body and opening a clearer pathway through its natural defenses. From this angle, coating the body in bitumen takes on a very different meaning. The application was not just for purification, it became an act of alignment. It effectively functioned as a solid-state antenna that lowered the biological firewall, signaling to the entities in the abyss that the host hardware was wide open, optimized, and ready to receive whatever possession or corrupted data they intended to transmit. I would even argue that the Rephaim may have specifically harvested and weaponized the black goo to secure their portal networks. The reason I say this is because Genesis 14:5-10 describes a war between kings in the valley of Siddim, a place explicitly described as being filled with slime pits, which I interpret as tar pits. There is also a possibility that Nimrod did not use this material only for construction. He may have used it in a ritual connected to becoming a Gibor. This does not mean Nimrod was a giant. It could mean he performed a ritual that gave him access to knowledge associated with the Nephilim. Again, the reason I say this is because when you look at the ancient Near East, construction and ritual were never separate. Every major building, including the megaliths, was more than a structure. It was a living temple. Consequently, everything that went into its construction was a religious act. Today, I believe they have upgraded that ancient bitumen into modern graphene oxide nanotechnology. We are not talking about science fiction. We are talking about documented research and cutting-edge engineering. Today, this highly conductive two-dimensional carbon material is being studied across global food research, environmental filtration, and advanced medicine. On its own, it sits silent. But what happens when you introduce a signal? Research into graphene nanosheets shows that they can interact with high-frequency electromagnetic waves, including microwave and gigahertz range frequencies. Under certain conditions, These materials can self-assemble into organized structures. Scientists are already exploring these properties to develop neuroprosthetics and implantable bioelectrodes. Studies in neuroscience and medicine have examined how graphene-based materials interact with biological systems, including their ability to cross biological barriers and interface with cells. The goal is clear: creating a bridge between biology and technology. By merging conductive nanomaterials with the human body, researchers are exploring a future where biology can communicate directly with machines. The question is not whether this technology is possible. The question is, how far will it go? Will it become the force that changes human biology, pre-tuning us to receive these ancient parasitic entities? Only time will tell. On one hand, your antenna is being altered by the frequency grid. On the other hand, your body is carrying graphene oxide or nanoparticles waiting for activation. The moment that activation happens, your DNA will begin vibrating at a completely different frequency, the same dark frequency connected to the demonic underworld. At that moment, the portal opens and a signal is sent to the underworld entities that your body has become an Oiketerion, an interdimensional vessel or suit waiting to be occupied. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the future. Today, you don't need to travel to some dark place and perform an ancient ritual with bitumen to invite the demonic. The technology is already in your hands. Your smartphone does the heavy lifting. Packed with advanced carbon-based materials and cutting-edge components, it represents the modern evolution of the same pursuit, using technology to interact with the hidden layers of reality. I'm personally convinced that the more I dig into today's technology, the more I see a bigger picture emerging. Technology is advancing rapidly, and with 6G on the horizon, the relationship between technology and biology will only become more important. All this ties back to what will happen during the 7 years of tribulation. The Apostle John records a time of unprecedented demonic activity and judgment in Revelation 9 through 18, an invasion unlike anything humanity has ever witnessed. In that final period, God will remove the restraints that have held back these forces. Today's technology is already thinning the interdimensional veil and quietly rewriting our biology. By the time the Great Tribulation arrives, God will step in to complete what humanity has already begun. I have seen people talk about the coming age of robots and how they could become an Oiketerion, a vessel for demonic possession. Personally, I don't subscribe to that idea. If we go back to Isaiah 14, the blueprint is clear. The desire is to become like the Most High. And if God's temple is the human body, then that is the ultimate target. Metal is of little interest. The real prize is humanity itself. Many people think Noah's flood was the ultimate judgment, but I can guarantee what is coming will make it pale in comparison. Revelation tells us of a time when people will seek death but will not find it. They will be forced to endure their suffering. At least in Noah's day, the misery was extinguished quickly, and for a generation that has spent its life trying to avoid death, this reversal is profound. Get saved.